Derrick Henry, of course, will look to help the Ravens bounce back from an 8-9 season. It matched their worst record over the last 10 years. The offense took a big step back last year, averaging fewer passing and rushing yards and scoring about 5.5 fewer points per game. Key might have been the red zone, where they dropped from a 74% touchdown rate in 2024 all the way down to 48% last season. Lewis, Declan Doyle is a first-time offensive coordinator. How much pressure is there on him and this Ravens offense to hit the ground running?
I think there's always pressure, especially considering you have a guy who's a two-time MVP like Lamar Jackson. You have guys like Zay Flowers. You have an offensive line that you've rebuilt, via the draft in particular with Vanga Ioane, their first-round pick from Penn State, who's an absolute monster. And when you've got an alien like Derrick Henry running the football in the backfield, there's a lot to work with right there. And in Baltimore, look, one of the reasons why some change was made this offseason, or rather, there was significant change made this offseason with the coaching staff, was the fact that they keep stalling out. They get to the postseason, stall out. They just are not able to go ahead and get over the hump and win the big games and lock in and dial in and be their best when their best is needed. And so now, here comes Declan Doyle, here comes Jesse Minter, here comes Anthony Weaver on the defensive side. I think collectively, there's a lot of pressure on this football team to take this team to the next level. How many times have we talked about the Baltimore Ravens having one of the quote-unquote best rosters in the NFL, yet they have no Super Bowls to show for it when it comes to this current regime, or rather this current roster configuration. So I think for him, he needs to unlock all of the different weapons that they have on this offense, which are many, and really get this team over the hump in critical situations, third down, red zone, 2-minute, on the road, and then specifically in the playoffs, which is what we talk about every single year.
Well, Dan, with the Buccaneers and Jets having a joint practice today, Ibuka limped off the field with a toe injury. The Bucs don't think it's serious at this point in time. He could miss a little bit of time. Hard to imagine he would have been playing in the preseason opener anyway on Friday night, but Ibuka now has to nurse that toe injury back to full strength before he's out there. Meanwhile, the Los Angeles Rams wide receiver Puka Nacua is dealing with a groin injury. I'm told it could be a few days that it could sideline him for, which anybody would sign up for right now. Not having Puka for a few days, not a huge deal, but the Rams are being careful with him and that groin injury he suffered yesterday, the same way that they're being careful with their prized defensive end, Myles Garrett, who's got some swelling in his knee. And before it gets any worse, they're having him take a little bit of time off. They don't think it's anything serious. They want to make sure that they're being smart with the best defensive player in football, and they want to make sure that he's ready a month from now when they play in Australia against the 49ers. They're not worried about him missing a few training camp practices due to swelling in his knee at this time.
And Chase, the Colts are a particularly interesting team to have these question marks surrounding them, the Alec Pierce and the Daniel Jones of it all, because this is a team that started off hot, as you mentioned last year, didn't make the playoffs, and there were questions about whether an organizational reset was going to be on tap. They ended up holding the course, and they're back with Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard, and Daniel Jones gets an extension, Pierce gets big money. Feels like one of those teams that in this division has a wide range of outcomes here. The best version of the Colts can compete to win the AFC South. The worst version might be clinging on to third place in this division. A fascinating year ahead for Indianapolis. And right now, that wide receiver room looks pretty dire to me at this exact moment.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Look, we all know Drake May is a bona fide franchise quarterback. And to me, he made the biggest jump I've seen in a long time from rookie to second year. But as the season progressed and they kept winning these games, and everyone wants to talk about the schedule, he needed some help around him. I don't think there's been a more improved roster, specifically at the receiver room and offensive line room, through draft and free agency. You go out, obviously you draft Caleb Lomu, you trade for A.J. Brown, you sign Elijah Vera Tucker to have that left guard spot, and then Romeo Doubs, as you mentioned, in free agency. But let's make no mistake about it. I know we've talked about this ad nauseum. A.J. Brown is a bona fide number one receiver. 6 of his 7 years in the NFL, over 1,000 yards. And he had 32 touchdowns in 4 years in Philly, and I still think he was underutilized in that pass game. So you put him with Drake May and everything that they're doing offensively, it's going to be a huge step because, like you said, you're going to ISO him, Field, right? You're going to put him on the left side of the field alone. You're going to put all these other guys on the right side, 3x1, 2x2, whatever it may be, motion them. And when he starts getting enough attention in double covering, that's where Romeo Doubs and Pop Douglas are going to come into play. So I like what the Patriots have done with the roster, and I think it'll be interesting to see just the ways that they utilize A.J. Brown, not just ISOing him, but moving him around the formation as well.
How much of an impact do you see him having in year one?
Well, Molly, I would have had a different answer if you asked me that question on May 1st, when it looked like the Niners would have Ricky Pearsall and Mike Evans and Christian Kirk were still healthy and not missing time during training camp. Here's what I like about Deshaun Stribling. This was a guy who, for much of last season, fit into the classic height, weight, speed mold, but he turned it on for Ole Miss down the stretch. You were covering some of those playoff games where he was one of the best players on the field in games filled with future NFL prospects. Played 5 years of college football, so he is an experienced guy who should understand the nuances of the NFL offenses a little bit better than your typical rookie. That being said, this team needs Mike Evans and or Christian Kirk and Deebo Samuel to have a legitimate impact this year. It's just the reality of where this Niners team is within its own division. They have the two teams that I believe deserve to be viewed as the best in the NFL, and the Seahawks and the Rams in the NFC West. These veterans better find a way to hold up their end of the bargain, Mina.
Here at Rams practice, I can tell you, Sean McVay talking about not being concerned. This is historically the route that the Rams have taken with any of their star players who's kind of going through any sort of issue. Myles Garrett now has been in training camp with the Rams for about 2.5 weeks. He's missed about 4 practices that have been open reported. That's about half of their workouts. But Sean McVay is saying there that this really is erring on the side of caution. Of course, they would have liked to have seen him out at joint practices. Dak Prescott, on the other hand, he was asked if he was bummed that Myles Garrett was not available to go today. He shook his head. He goes, I definitely heard him out there. Dak Prescott, though, reiterating that because they were not going against this elite pass rusher, they did take out some of the protections that they had planned on working through today. So that did alter some of their plan as they went against the Rams. Dak Prescott assessing today's workout, saying it was good, not great. They did not quite get off to the start that they wanted to.
Well, I think if you're JJ, number one, this is just a setback. This is not the end of the story. I think we've seen several quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, that things didn't always go well initially, and now they're starting quarterbacks in the National Football League. So if you're JJ McCarthy, yeah, you're disappointed. He's human. He's going to be disappointed to lose the competition. But at the end of the day, you sit back and you learn. I think the number was like 64 or 65 quarterbacks played last year. So the likelihood of him playing this season is really high. So you sit back, you learn. When you get your opportunity, whether that's this year in Minnesota or whether that's somebody else, you come out, you take advantage of the opportunity. I do not think, by no stretch of the imagination, is the J.J. McCarthy story over. As a matter of fact, I still think it's just beginning. He's only got 10 starts. So if you're J.J., yeah, you can be disappointed, but don't feel bad long, brother.
Talk about some of the guys that are in the next level. Cleveland fans are nuts about Denzel Boston right now. What do you, and also Jonah Coleman in Denver. What can you tell me about, again, these kids and maybe your role in making sure they're set up for the future?
Yeah, I'm so excited from the things that I've heard and read, and what we've done is we found a way to try to demonstrate to our players, like, hey, look at this article, about Denzel finding his way with the first team, or Coach Monken talking about Denzel in a press conference and how prepared he's been, or Coach Payton saying that Jonah Coleman doesn't come across as a rookie. That all, to me, demonstrates that those guys embrace the Be a Pro standard here and the Be a Pro model. And it doesn't matter where they got drafted, 2nd round, 4th round. What mattered was they came in there prepared to be a pro, and then they're being rewarded for that. I think the same is going with Carver Willis in San Francisco, from what I understand. He's having a great camp. Tacario Davis in Cincinnati, great camp. And I'm just so excited about the fact that those guys, and Zach Durfee, I talked to Liam the other day down in Jacksonville, how he's doing. So it's pretty cool to have relationships with all these coaches that have taken on our former players. Obviously, so proud of T-Mac being the Offensive Player of the Year. We had him, recruited him, coached him in Arizona from last season. So I take great pride, and I love all of our former players' successes. And it's been super cool to watch it. Certainly with Denzel and Jonah have gotten a lot of the headlines recently over the last 2 days. Yeah.